Hey everybody, welcome. Greetings, Pastor G here. So glad you're able to join me for another Robert's Kickstart. And I got a little experiment I want to tell you about. But before I tell you about that experiment, I'm going to be talking to you about the grasshopper complex. The grasshopper complex. So there's this experiment born of curiosity. And this person decided to take a grasshopper, and grasshoppers are amazing leapers. But they decided to put this grasshopper in a jar and seal it with the lid. Had holes, of course, so you don't kill the grasshopper. But, grasshoppers have this innate ability to jump. And so the grasshopper began to jump inside the lid and jump inside the jar. So as it would jump, it would hit his head against the lid, knowing that it should be able to jump much higher than the lid. The grasshopper did this repeatedly, and after it got tired of bumping its head, it decided somewhere along the way to adjust its jump and started to jump just to jump high enough where it would no longer bump its head against the lid. After it did this for several times, our experimenter decided to remove the lid. And guess what happened? The grasshopper continued to jump just low enough, thinking that the lid was still there, and it did not leap out of the jar. Well, here's another story I got for you, and this story comes from the Old Testament. God's people were on their way to what we know as the Promised Land. This place that God was taking them to that was filled with milk and honey. And before they actually went inside to set up camp in the land, they sent some spies out to go check out the territory. And as they got there, they saw milk and honey, they saw figs, they saw grapes, and these grapes were so huge that it took two men to carry a small vine. They had to carry it on a stick between them because these grapes were so huge. Making me hungry right now. But anyways, so this land was everything that they wanted and needed and desired. But they ran into one problem. This land was filled with giants. And as they came back to the group, there were a couple of guys who were like, hey, look, I think we can go in and we might have to fight a couple of giants, but I think we'd be all right. But the rest of the spies were kind of filled with this fear. And this is what they said in Numbers chapter 13, verses 31 through 33. But the other men who had explored the land with them disagreed. We can't go up against them. They are stronger than we are. So they spread this bad report about the land among the Israelites. The land we traveled through and explored will devour anyone who goes to live there. All the people we saw were huge. We even saw giants there, the descendants of Anak. Next to them, we felt like grasshoppers, and that's what they thought too. Next to them, we felt like grasshoppers, and that's what they thought too. It's interesting when I think about these two stories. I think about the wonderful dreams that many of us have. Here you are, many of you are in your first year of college, and you have these grand ideas of what you want to do, or maybe you had these ideas or expectations of what you thought college would be like. And you ran into a pandemic. Or maybe you ran into other obstacles or what appear to be barriers that you had not taken into consideration. You didn't know that there would be these so-called giants or obstacles standing in the way of you and your dreams. And when we get into situations like that, we begin to rethink things. we begin to maybe even change our mindsets. When we come up against obstacles, all of our insecurities come to the forefront of our minds. Well, I'm not good enough to do this. Well, I've never done this before. I'm smaller than they are. We begin to compare ourselves against other people, or we begin to measure ourselves up against the giant or the obstacle that is in the way. And many of us lose before we even step onto the court or to the field to play the game. We've already lost it because of our mindset. The grasshopper complex is about readjusting your mindset because you have fear of what you're going up against. And you're really not taking into consideration your own unique strengths that God has blessed you with. Another verse I want to read to you from Romans 12, verses 3 and 4. And the Apostle Paul is writing this here, and he says this. He says, "For by the grace given me, I say to every one of you, do not think of yourselves more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourselves with sober judgment, in accordance with the faith God has distributed to each of you." See, the way to combat the grasshopper complex is not to think you're better than you really are. Not to go to the other extreme was like, oh yeah, I'm bigger than a giant. I'm stronger than a giant. No, that's exaggerating it a little bit. The giant probably is stronger and much more taller than you are. That's why they're a giant. But what Paul is saying here, he says, look, don't think more highly of yourself than you ought to, but think about yourself according to the grace of God on your life. Think soberly about who you are and remembering that God is with you. See, I believe that all of us have been given these unique abilities and talents to use in our particular lane. And when we are doing the very thing that we were designed or created to do with our unique abilities, there is no one who can do that better than we can. And so Paul is encouraging them. He's saying, look, don't think greater than you are about yourself, and certainly don't think any lower about yourself than you really are. Think sober about who you are. Think soberly. It's the same thing with this grasshopper complex, with the experiment of curiosity. Sometimes in life we face various challenges, and because these challenges are hard or because they make us think about things that we aren't good at, we readjust our jump. So then we don't jump as high as we could. But listen, God has given you grace. He's given you ability. He is with you. And when you face those obstacles, don't turn and run the other way. Yes, you may need to pause and think about it and develop a strategy and a plan. But you need to look at not your weaknesses, but look at your strengths.
You are here, you're moving in our midst. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, touching every heart. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, healing every heart. I worship you, I worship you. 'Cause you are Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keep, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keep, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are.
You are here, turning lives around. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, mending every heart. I worship you, I worship you.
'Cause you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keep, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keep, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. 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 That is who you are, God. You're the light in the darkness. You're the hope to the hopeless. That is who you are, God. That is who you are. We sing even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. Never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. Never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. Never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. Never stop. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. 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 Oh, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Oh, you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are.
So here's a couple of questions that I want to ask you that will help you combat this grasshopper mentality. First question: what things are you good at? What are you good at? Take a moment, write it down, list them out. What are you good at? What makes you unique? Now, don't go to the bad things. Don't go to the negative aspects of what makes you unique, but no, what are these good qualities that God has blessed you with? You may not see them as special, but what makes you you? And you may need to look at the areas that others have affirmed in your life, that have other people who have said to you, hey, you know what? You have a knack for this. You know, you're really good at connecting with people. You know, you are really great at retaining information. All of these things that we would undervalue about ourselves, what are these unique abilities that are in your arsenal, if you will, that will help you move past some of the giants that are in your way? Because we don't go through life. It would be great if we were like, oh, this is our dream. All right, boom, and we're there. But if you listen to some of the stories of the people that you admire and that you look up to the most, they will tell you that they had to face giants. And oftentimes, it's not the giants that are out there that we're afraid of. It's what we feel is a lack of our own ability that we're often afraid of. Maybe you may need to do a Strength Finders quiz. I don't know if you've heard of that. I'm sure that many of you may hear of it in the days to come. Strength Finders. It's a unique way to find out what unique gifts and qualities that you have. There's a book on it. If you're interested, shoot me an email and we can talk about it. But maybe you need to surround yourself with people who you can just ask, hey, I'm really struggling today. I feel like I don't have the strength or the capacity to face this. Can you remind me what I'm good at? Some of you may need to take these lists and put them on a mirror so that when you look in the mirror, you can see this list and you can remind yourself, today may be hard, but I can face today because God has uniquely gifted me with these talents and abilities and His grace. May the grace of God be with you, and may we all, by His strength, His power, and ability, overcome the grasshopper complex. God bless.